We're here to talk about the future is female and kind of new economic opportunities for women in India in the changing economy. For those of you who don't know me, though I do see a couple familiar faces, my name is Thea Uppal, and I work for Nisha Biswal, who you just heard from at the US-India Business Council. I've been running the West Coast office for the council up out of the Bay Area for the last 5 years. So it's great to be down here with you all in LA. So though it's tempting to dive into last night's midterms and kind of some of the firsts that were achieved by women here domestically elected to office, it's important to also note, for those of you who don't know, in India, India has actually had a woman hold both top offices, both with Indira Gandhi in '66, the first time, as Prime Minister, as well as Pratibha Patel in 2007 as President. So for those of you who weren't aware of that, that's an important kind of point as we discuss. But it's a real pleasure to introduce our two panelists. So Vandana, you are a founder of Bombay Pictures. You have founded the Oshan Center, and you work at the engineering firm Almex USA. You began working for Akshaya Patra in 2012, and you opened the office about 4 years ago for the LA chapter. You've made it very financially successful. Vishaka, it's not only do you have a career as a film actor, but you also are a tech entrepreneur, and having co-founded a multilingual AI assistant, Iconic, which we want to hear more about. So as we tease out some of the trends across industries in India, we'll pose this first question to you, Vishaka. Can you tell us a little about how the media and entertainment industry has changed, maybe in the last 10 years or through your experience? And how do you see the new opportunities for women in India today?
So, you know, our film industry has been around for almost 100 years. And we started off with, way back in the early 19th century, we had men who would perform the female characters' parts. And, you know, after independence, there were a lot of films that were centered around the freedom struggle and, you know, nationalism and patriotism, etc. And gradually we moved into the 60s, 70s, where women were given a lot of importance in films. We had some very high content-driven films made in the 70s, and then came the 80s and the 90s, which I would say were the dark ages for Indian cinema, where the focus shifted to a lot of, well, for a want of a better word, to a lot of violence and profanity. But then came the year 2000, and that changed a lot of things because we had a lot of filmmakers, directors, writers who had a lot of global perspective, and that started reflecting in their work within the Indian film industry. And then maybe towards the end of 2008, there was a massive change in our industry with the advent of the independent cinema, which was basically spearheaded by Anurag Kashyap, who's a very famous figure. And I had the pleasure of co-producing 2 films with him as well. 2 films called Peddlers and Haramkhor, which were selected and screened at the Cannes Film Festival in 2012 and 14. Now, the beauty of these films was that these were independent cinemas. They were a far cry from the typical Bollywood dance fare, song and dance. And song and dance is great. I mean, it's entertaining. But I think when you have something as powerful as cinema, you must have a voice. You must be able to influence people with some kind of a message, not necessarily preachy, but if you can combine entertainment as well as you know, something that can make you think. And that is what happened. Now, in the last 10 years, when this started happening with independent cinema, also came in a lot of support from people who kind of realized that independent cinema is something that is being recognized by the global community as well. The Cannes Film Festival gave our Indian cinema a lot of you know, mileage. And with that came in the focus on women in the film industry. In fact, if I give you an example, in 2017, the top 5 films, Indian films released in the US itself, all 5 of them had male protagonists, and they did really well. But in 2018, up till now, up till October, The top 5 films, out of the top 5 films, 2 of the films are female-centric films.
Wow.
You know, so that is the change that we are witnessing right now.
Absolutely. We'll get back to kind of the tech side of it as well
Sure.
in a minute, but Vandana, can you tell us a little bit about Akshaya Patra Foundation and the trends that you see from the foundation's perspective on opportunities for girls in the education system and the school system in India?
Sure. So Akshay Patra, which means the sustainable goal of always having food for what we are doing. And that is, we provide 1.7 million meals to government school children in 14,250 schools in 12 states in India every day. And so we operate 41 kitchens in these 12 states in the 41 locations. These are centralized kitchens. We cook the food and we transport it in customized vans to where the children are. So there's a nexus between classroom hunger and education and making sure that it is given to the children in their own personal environment, which is in class. Because you could be sitting in a class in Harvard, and if you have not eaten for 2 days, nothing works. Your brain's not focusing. And children especially need to have that meal in the middle of the day to sustain them. Unfortunately, it is the only meal that the child gets. So what Akshay Patra has been doing for the last 17 years has been growing from 1,500 to currently feeding 1.7 million children. And there have been studies in Harvard and Nielsen that have gone over what we do is to give a full meal. It's not the same meal every day. It changes. There is a variety in the menu. There are vegetables and all the things that can nourish their bodies. But these were based also, one on the nutrition factor, and the second was also based on the impact that it did to children, girls and boys, to attendance, and then, of course, to how their improvement was in education and academics and sports. So what the studies found was, in government schools in India usually get a bad rap because the teaching, the quality of the teaching is not so great. But the quality of the teaching is also based on whether the children can focus in class. So one cannot happen without the other. And when they found that the children were attending in higher numbers because of the kind of food they were getting, they found that the percentage now that Akshay Patra sees used to be 50%. So out of the 100% that are enrolled in the class, about only 50% would actually show up for the entire day. Most of them would disappear. They would just be there for a little bit. So when our program started, we found there are 80% to 85% is now an average of attendance. And the other thing that we found was there was more girls who are attending our schools. And the ratio now is pretty close to 50-50 as an average. It changes in a few states, but it's a 50% girls ratio. And that is significant in the sense that when a girl goes to school and you educate the girl and she stays in school, she's not going around washing people's utensils and working as a housekeeper and babysitting people's kids. She's sitting in class and she completes her education. And when you do that, especially educating a girl, she tends to get married later. She tends to go toward higher education. She also tends to have fewer children. And the most important, she tends to educate her own children. And so what would have taken 45 years without intervention to change the family out of the cycle of poverty now takes only 1 generation or 12 years. And that is significant because these are the future of India. There are 120 million children in government schools. And this is a very significant amount, is that once you see that you have the proper nutrition in class, the change is significant.
Absolutely. The rural-urban divide is always a discussion, both in India and in the US. And I'm wondering, can you speak a little bit about what the kind of participation is like in the schools, public school system, both with the urban poor and rural poor, and then also in the middle class in India.
Sure. I don't think there is a middle class that comes to the government schools. Usually government schools are free, and the children who attend them are, they are not street kids. They are not the beggars that you see. They are not the children who you see in the households working. These are children who have two incomes. They have, the parents are both working, and they are usually bottom of the pyramid construction workers, laborers, and people who subsist on pretty much about $2 a day. And they can only provide maybe a rice or a bit of bread to the kids. There are no vegetables. So this meal is intended to make sure that it is the meal that I would feed my own children if I had the means and the facilities to do that. But between urban and rural poverty, people think that in the urban cities it's easier, people make more money, yes, but they also have a lot of expenses. And urban poverty is a much more serious problem, contrary to people's beliefs, because in the villages, people help each other. There was a system, there still is a system, where students or young children decide on the days on which they would go to a certain family and eat. So that family there is no commitment, there's nothing, but that family just assumes that this child who cannot afford it is going to be eating with us for that 1 week. So these children, they call it var lavane in Marathi, and they would have this. So in the villages, families watch out for each other in the rural areas, but in the cities, the easiest answer is to go and work somewhere in their factories or whatever is available. So, and Akshay Patra is doing that. We are putting up more kitchens in the urban areas.
Wonderful. So, Vishaka, can you speak a little bit about how you came to the position of entrepreneur? Because I think understanding Iconic as a platform and understanding, how you reached that opportunity helps talk a little bit about the intersection between the media and entertainment industry and the tech space writ large, but also, connecting the urban and rural as you're connecting kind of big stakeholders and personalities to their audiences, which can't just be in the cities.
A lot of layers to that. Well, I'll just start
Take
with
your
my
time.
journey. Well, so I am a very privileged girl from India. Not many women have the kind of opportunities that I've had. So I've been privileged that I've had great education. I come from a very educational background, and then became an actor because I was offered some good opportunities. But I think education, again, plays a big role in how you look at your profession. And that is one of the reasons I feel education actually helped me become helped me become a thinking actor. Most often in India, when we do films, actresses are expected to be sweet and cute, and they're just supposed to respond, and you're supposed to dance around actors, your heroes and male counterparts. But I think my brain was always ticking, and that's one of the reasons I transitioned into becoming a film producer, because I always thought, as I said, films should be a medium of influence. And so when I became a film producer, it became very important. Every time I released a film, it became extremely important for me to connect with my audience. Even as an actor, I mean, at the end of the day, it is your fan base that makes you a star. And if you think in terms of politics, it is your citizens that really get you back into power. So it's very important to connect with your user, your target audience. So last year, it just so happened that I was not able to, it started off as a very simple thing when I got about 600 messages in my messenger inbox on Facebook. I had a lot of fans who messaged me, happy birthday. Now, what happens with actors is, it's an occupational hazard because you need to maintain your social media profile. You have to be on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and you name it. Now, for somebody like me who's walked away from acting, this definitely is an occupational hazard, but then fine, great. Whenever my films are releasing, I connect with my audience and I sell tickets. So when I received 600 messages, I was like, wow, these are people who are not really posting comments on the Facebook page. They are going a step further by clicking on that send message button and coming into my messenger inbox. So there's a level of authenticity, and they've gone a step further, and you need to reward that. So I was speaking to this friend of mine who's an ex-IBM, and he said, I could just simply automate it for you, and I could make a bot. And I was like, whoa, bot, this is scary. And he was like, no, just think of it, chatbot, a chatting robot. And he made me understand that a bot or a chatting robot is just a tool. It is the intent of the user that makes all the difference. So you may have leaders again, but it is always the intent of the leader that changes the course of history. So you could either be a Hitler, or you could be somebody who can really change history in a good way. So we made a chatbot, and my chatbot responded, telling my fans, saying, hey guys, this is Vishakha's virtual assistant, and I'm dumb. Help me, just train me well so that I can respond to you on behalf of Vishakha. And I sent a picture with that message, with me cutting the birthday cake, and that went viral. Now what happens is, every time I post anything on Facebook or on Twitter and Facebook are very smart. They have their algorithms, and they ensure that my message does not reach 99% of my target audience. So what we did was, I would post something on my Facebook page saying, guys, how about a Q&A, or find me on my messenger, and I'd post the messenger link, and people would come into the messenger. And then my user base on my messenger went up to 40,000 users. Now, why is this important? Because every time I want to reach these 40,000 people, when I send them an automated message, I reach 100% of my target audience. Every time a user has a question, they get to hear the truth from my mouth directly. And that is why it was important. So I realized that it worked on my page, and I said, great, this is definitely engaging the fans. Now, can we actually sell tickets? And then I partnered with a friend of mine who was releasing a very big film in south of India called Mercil, which was a huge blockbuster hit last year. We got 79,000 fans for them in a span of 2 weeks. We sold 8,000 movie tickets on that platform for them. So this was really making a lot of difference. And then we thought, okay, what if we replicate this on, say, a politician's page? Imagine what a powerful tool this can be for policy making. And that's what we are doing now. We're setting up base in Toronto. Now, what was the second part of the question?
No, that's wonderful. So, I mean, it sounds like that sort of technology could be very easily applied to the use for foundations as well, reaching stakeholders and your larger sponsorship network. But I think we can open up to the audience after one more question, but I think understanding a little bit about the opportunities that exist in India now, and I think we've given some examples that counter some of the media around, public safety for women and that sort of thing. It's not just one side of this. It is one side of the story, and it's absolutely not all pervasive. But as the Me Too movement surges, especially in the media entertainment industry, how do you see it growing, and is it really becoming a source of empowerment for women within the industry?
Absolutely. I am so happy that this movement has, finally reached India. I've had a lot of my friends speak out, and I'm glad it was basically the journalism industry that, started it in India, and now a lot of actors have started speaking. And what it does is, it really cleanses the entire system. And this was a personal conversation that I was having in my office when one of my co-founders was like, I'm scared to hire women now. And I was like, are you okay hiring predators then, men who are willing to harass? And I think a lot of my, producer friends who are women, we all came together and we decided that if we as women don't hire more women in our workforce, we will never really reach a desired balance. And as I said, this is basically cleansing of the system, and this will definitely ensure a safer environment now for us.
So I guess, Vandana, one more question for you is, do you think that there are specific geographies throughout India that are participating in the program differently or with varying levels of success? with what Akshaya Patra is trying to do and providing meals to school children, is there any resistance from a state, or is there different success based off of regional variances or kind of cultural norms in different areas of India? Or is it more homogenous and it's a large need and you're fulfilling that need across the country?
I think it kind of standardizes, and it is a homogeneous system in the sense that we cater to the poorest children on the planet. 3,000 children in India die every day from hunger or hunger-related diseases. And parents are parents. You go anywhere on the planet, they act and treat their children like all parents do, in the sense that no parent wants their child to be going out and working and making a living to feed themselves. So what you're seeing everywhere in the cities or in the rural areas is that parents want their children to get a good education. They don't want them to be working. A great example is one of the girls who came to our office, and she met with our CEO in India, and she told him, you need to meet me, and you need to hear my story, because you have been working for 12 years as a CEO, and you need to see what you have produced with the kind of talent you have produced. She said, I'm here because I got admitted to a PhD program. And I have been in Akshay Patra schools all my life because of that. So it does empower women. We have 8,000 employees, and 30% are women. And they are also a group of workers who help us and give us feedback.
Absolutely. Great. Well, we will open up to the audience. If there are one or two questions, we can take those. It is a little hard to see those, so please. Yes, absolutely.
Hi, thank you. Elisa Halo with US Bank, but I have a question for our lady producer, Ashata. Are you saying there's lots of opportunities or more opportunities for women in India to become the directors and creative shapers of the content?
Absolutely. I feel there is, as I said, in the last 10 years, we've had more, the focus has shifted on women. We have started getting funding for our films when it's a female protagonist. Until 4 years back, I remember my friends used to tell me, what is wrong with you? Why do you produce films that are about female immigrants from Bangladesh and a 15-year-old schoolgirl getting molested? In fact, the last film that I did won the national award in India, and it was on a rape survivor. And my friends thought I was on a crusade. And now, from this year onwards, the funding is easy. I've just tied up with HP Studios in LA, who are now producing a film with me, co-producing a film with me. So it's definitely easy for us, easier, if not easy, easier for us. And it's the way forward.
Wonderful. Yep.
Hi, Rick Ambrose. I work in the media and entertainment space, also in India. I'm just wondering, I've noticed there are a lot of changes in India in the sense that Geo is rolling out this 5G. Everyone's going to have a mobile phone supposedly for free. And then all of a sudden, you also have these OTT platforms like the Netflix and the Amazons coming into India.
Right.
And as you've been alluding to, there's an opportunity for much content beyond Bollywood, song and dance, and salsa. So it seems to me like the whole space is changing also because the consumer are demanding new things. So if you could just comment a little bit about that, what your predictions are.
Well, I don't know about predictions because I'm still growing with the industry. But yes, I think what has happened with the internet coming in and the boom, and with great connectivity, is that the audience, the movie-watching audience, which is usually, the theater-going audience is usually from the age group of 15 to 28. And it is this audience that is very exposed to global cinema and are demanding high content now from films. And, sorry, I keep missing the part of the question.
Oh, I was just wondering, the connectivity, both through mobile and OTT platforms, just the new type of programming that is coming into the country that used to not have access to.
Right, so as you said, there is Jio, we've got Netflix, we've got Amazon, and the world has shrunk. So we are now making films that I don't think would any longer be considered just Indian. They're all global cinema now, and as you said, mainly because of the kind of audience, because our audience has become a global audience, I would say. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Sure. So this started 17 years ago. I'm not the founder. I just joined a few years ago. And it was because of, there's an ISKCON temple in Bangalore, and the chairman and the founders, they saw children and dogs fighting over food in the trash. And being priests, you know, they don't have bank accounts, they have nothing. They just do their work. And they took it upon themselves to feed, they swore that they would feed children within 10 kilometers. So they themselves were cooking for the longest time, 1,500, 2,000 meals, and it grew. And we got the attention of Sudha Murthy and Narayan Murthy, Mohandas Pai, and some of the people who were devotees at the temple. And they said, you cannot sustain this, you know, you cannot be cooking, so why don't you design kitchens? And our founders, who was the priest, just happened to be a civil engineer who, with very frugal innovation, a papad machine became a roti machine, and the cauldron that you stir in for 2 people became one that could serve 5,000 children. And those numbers are amazing because the roti machine can make 60,000 rotis in an hour. Cooking to consumption time for 185,000 meals is 6 hours. And this is like a for-profit company that is highly efficient, $87 million budget, and it costs $20 to feed a child for the whole year. So yeah, this 232 meals, 20 cents a meal, we raise 9 cents. I could talk about the numbers forever, but my inspiration is, of course, you know, as a woman, as a mother, you take on 2 kids and you know how much trouble it is, and then you take on 1.7 million and it's no big deal.
So I think we're running up against time, but there was one more question over here that I saw. If you want to ask the last one.
I know, Pooja, I'm from Thunderbird. The question is for you. I've actually seen Akshay Patra, live in India, and it's been a great experience. And I think the biggest struggle with your operations, where you said the cook-to-consumption time is 6 hours, and the maximum number of children, I think, in need of this kind of food are more in rural areas where we can't get the food in 6 hours. So which kind of areas are you looking to expand into going further?
We are in 12 states right now, and first of all, you need to get permissions from the other states. So we have been welcomed into Uttar Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Jharkhand, and a lot of other. Maharashtra is now opening up and signing new MOUs. But the struggle is always to see where the need is the most. There are 120 million children in government schools. 1.7 is not a creditable market share by any means. So the growth expansion is for about 108 kitchens. 20 are funded. That will open in the next 1 year. 40 kitchens by 2020. Our goal is to feed 5 billion meals by then. We are at 2.7 billion right now. So we are in a very big, rapid expansion phase right now. And we scale well. We feed kids. We produce massive number of meals. And the hitch is always in the resources. So, and we raise quite a bit in India. We only raise 10% in the US. And that says a lot for corporate CSR and the goodwill we have in India.
Wonderful. Well, thank you everyone for listening, and thank you Vandana and Vishaka. I really appreciate it.